for a session called How You Can Win the AI Race. Give it up for these two. First session of the day. How are we feeling, gentlemen?
Hey, we awake, we up. We up.
So backstage, I said, I am not going to introduce you because you can tell your story better than I can. So I'm going to start with DJ. You introduce yourself first. Tell the folks who you are.
Yeah, so I'm DJ Johnson, originally from Compton, California. I'm the head of sales at Microsoft. I head our cloud and AI team, and I recently just founded and started my own startup. It's called Sherpa Clouds. It's an NIL platform for agents and teams to essentially manage player data.
Woo. Brandon, I practiced your company name backstage, but I got out here and I butchered it. Break it down for us one more time. I'm so sorry.
NVIDIA.
There we go. Everybody say NVIDIA. They did it better than I did.
So I'm Brandon. I've been at NVIDIA the past 5 years. I've been in a combination of roles on product management, also in solutions architecture. Prior to that, I spent I spent time at 2 venture capital firms. So I've spent the bulk of my career advising AI founders, as well as working in enterprise tech.
And you all may have realized they share a last name. You all are family. Talk about that and the connection and how you guys have kind of inspired one another.
Yeah, I was telling him backstage, so Brandon, I feel like he's always been the smart one. I tell him to this day, he's smarter than me, even though we both work in AI. I've always been a sales guy, but I think something that Brandon has pushed me to do is kind of think outside the box and be innovative and take more risks. Even with starting my own company, I work with $1 million accounts at Microsoft, and I work with AI like right with my hands on it. Brandon was kind of one of the ones that was like, hey, you look at sports different. You play professional sports, there might be a way for you to actually kind of merge your love for technology and sports.
Sounds like we have an Amber Alert. So talk about your impact. What did it feel like for you to have that impact on your customer?
I feel like I have an obligation to always send the elevator back down. So I think it's something that I've done consistently throughout my career. Even when I was young, middle school, high school, whatever, I've always tried to help other people. And my version of the future isn't always right, but I at least try to educate others on where I think it's going.
Always giving back, that's what we like to see. So let's talk about some predictions. We're here to talk about AI, the future. So I want each of you to give me a 30-second prediction that will make headlines. So what's one AI trend that everyone's talking about that you think is completely overhyped, and then one that you think is massively underhyped? Brandon, let's start with you this time.
Well, this is controversial. I would say agents. I'm not sure if everyone here is familiar with these AI agents, but if you have heard of an AI agent, it's a way of automating a task. I think right now we see a lot of tasks being automated. However, these tasks aren't consistently being automated, so they work maybe once, but if you were to automate something, you want it to be done repeatedly. So I think we got to spend a lot less time focusing on connecting agents to more tools and focus on the tools that we have to make them more reliable. Because if you want to do something, that's going to ultimately save money for a company or save someone's life, you want to make sure that the outcome is predictable every time. So I think over time, we're going to see a push over the next 1 to 2 years where we're focused on reliability and outcomes, as opposed to just saying, hey, this thing worked, it summarized my paper, or it did this thing. I think that's going to become really important. And what was the second part of the question, sir?
Which one do you think is underhyped?
I think not enough people are focused on infrastructure. I don't think we'd be in this space if it wasn't for infrastructure. If you guys know who NVIDIA is, NVIDIA powers all the infrastructure for ChatGPT and all the other systems that exist. I think because of that, a lot of people feel like there's no more room to innovate in the hardware space, which I don't think is true. I think it's evident that not only NVIDIA, but companies like Microsoft, AWS, and others are continuing to develop in the hardware space. But I don't see as many startup founders building in that space because they feel like they don't really have a chance. So I think that's something that there's a lot of room for innovation.
DJ, same question to you.
Yeah, I want to touch on the AI agents as well. So he talked about something, right? It's like, you're deploying these AI agents, they're not doing tasks automatically. So something I'm looking at, I'm talking with customers and even in my own company is agentic AI frameworking, right? So essentially tying those AI agents to tasks so they can actually automate them for you, going in on that back end, whether it be summarizing a report, pulling an expense, whatever that looks like for your organization. So automating that task for it. And then I think one thing's like underhyped or maybe like not thought about enough, I think about like AI platforming. So like, hey, like how do you actually build your company to run and work with AI? I see a lot of folks that want to do things with AI, whether it be RAG augmentation, even AI agents, but they don't have the infrastructure internally ready to go to actually do more with their data and actually get the results that they want from AI.
Very interesting. So what do you all think is the single biggest AI opportunity that entrepreneurs are missing out on at this time? I'll start with you, DJ.
I feel like this is like our gold rush. When I think about AI and what it can do, we were sitting at lunch yesterday and he pulled up a software that literally you can give it a prompt about you essentially coding a software idea and it'll code it for you. That was never the case back in the day. Like you had to have a team of engineers. So if you have an idea and you have the right resources, that barrier to entry is so much lower now. It makes me excited for our community, honestly. As long as you got $20, you buy ChatGPT, you can start your own software company, which is crazy, which wasn't the case back in the day. And to Brandon's point about the infrastructure, there's companies like AWS, Google, and Microsoft. They want to work with our community around our ideas and bring them to life. So I just think about the resources and tools, the low barrier to entry. This is the time, if you got an idea, run with it, don't be scared of it, lean into it, go make it happen.
Let's talk about how you all got into the tech space, because you kind of, when we were speaking backstage, you said it was a non-traditional route, and that's for both of you, right?
Yeah, you want to take that view?
Yeah, sure. I'm a first-gen college student. I imagine many of you all may be as well. I'm originally from Rocky Mount, North Carolina, a small town, about 45,000 people. I was not only first-gen, I didn't meet my dad outside of a prison cell until I was 24. There was no one in my family really pushing STEM, so it was one of those things where I always was I was smart, but I grew up in the hood. So it was always interesting, but as I got older, I found, I would say, positive role models who kind of, pushed me a little further to actually explore the creative side. And so that ultimately led to me, going to school. I originally studied aerospace engineering, and then I was going on a PhD track. My goal was to get my PhD and work at NASA. Doing one of my internships, I had a chance to pitch my research to investors. I didn't know what an investor was at the time, but I placed in the competition. And I was given a full ride for a PhD, and then I went back to school the following semester, and I told my advisor that I think I wanted to switch careers. He's like, what do you mean? You finally got into school, why'd you want to switch careers now? Is it
This was not part of the plan,
No, it wasn't. And I'm big on following that my intuition. So the voice in the back of my head, I always listen to it because it's never led me astray. And the voice in the back of my head told me that I should pivot careers. And at that time, I didn't know exactly what that looked like, but I knew what I was good at. And that was being able to take complex topics and break them down for other people to understand. So I went back to school, like I said, that semester, talked to my advisor, and he says, well, do you want to switch majors? And I was like, heck no, I've already been here a while, I was a double major. And then he was like, well, look, I tell you what, your aerospace classes are actually harder than your materials degree classes. So I'll just give you credit for your other classes, and you can graduate this semester if you want to. I was like, wait, what? So unexpectedly, I graduated that semester, and as you might imagine, I have said that I wanted to switch careers, but here I am. And what I wanted to switch ultimately to was to switch into tech. But my background was not in tech. It was STEM, but it wasn't computer science. And at the time, I thought I needed to code. So what I did was I taught myself to code. I don't like coding to this day. Sure, I can do it, but I taught myself to code. And this is why my path isn't linear. At the time, AI was not popular. My first job, I went to a drone startup company because I knew aerospace. And so what I did was I was thinking at the time, where can I apply my domain knowledge? Sorry to be winded here. And my domain knowledge was aerospace, so I figured I could go to an aviation company and actually do well. So I did that, learned about robotics, I learned about computer vision, and ultimately, that's how I learned AI. And 8. I've been in the field 8 years now at NVIDIA.
I was gonna say, can you give it up? I see why you say he inspired you. You're very smart. You're like a genius. Okay? Like, I feel like,
My story ain't that.
but you were super involved in athletics, pro athlete, moved into the tech field. So I'm sure that was kind of a difference or a different change of pace.
Yeah, no, it was. So, for me, growing up in South Central LA, lack of resources. My mother, she worked 3 jobs all the way to when I was 23. I had a chance to go undrafted to the NFL. I spent the season up in Jacksonville with the Jaguars, and had a chance to go play in Canada in a city called Montreal. So, me, I can't sit there and be like, I was going to be in technology. I wanted to work in tech. To Brandon's point, people in our family really didn't go to college. So I was the first one to go to school, but I only went to school to play football. So, luckily I did graduate with my degree, went, played football, and then when I came back home, really didn't know what I wanted to do. So I started just looking up, sales careers, because I have my business administration degree. I got a job with a reseller that was a reseller of Dell computers. I used to do 100 calls a day. That was my KPI, cold calls. Yeah, that was crazy times, man. Worked from 6 to 3, 6 a.m. to 3 p.m. I did that for almost 2 years before finally getting a break to actually go work for Dell directly. Even there, I started off as what's called ISR, so still doing about 50 cold calls a day, but it wasn't as bad as what I was doing before. One of my mentors, Jason Carter, he's actually the chief revenue officer for Dell now. He was a manager at the time. He took me under his wing, taught me about cybersecurity, he taught me about data, the importance of it, and from there I essentially kind of started my climb as far as an enterprise expert as far as tech sales go. So worked for Dell for almost 5 years on the sports and media entertainment side of the house. Was missing sports enough to where I wanted to start my own sports agency. So I did that for almost 3 years. I had about 30 clients. Anybody who wants to become a sports agent, talk to me backstage. I would not recommend it. You will go broke. You will definitely go broke. But that took me to the next chapter of my life where I was actually sleeping in my car for about almost 10 months before I really stayed with my mom. Oddly enough, that's when me and Brandon kind of reconnected. He was working over at NVIDIA. He gave me he was working at NetApp. He was working at NetApp. He gave me some resources around cloud computing. And I essentially kind of went all in. So I went all in to get some certifications. I enrolled and got my MBA from Georgetown, and that kind of started my path back into technology. I worked for a company called Cloudera, where I brokered one of the biggest deals between Cloudera and Microsoft with a medical company out of California. And Microsoft approached me and said, hey, we have a team we're building. It's going to be 20 AI reps. We want you to be one of them, and haven't looked back since.